Hello, I'm Justin Smith, and this is day 2 of the Listen Now week. Please follow the hashtag and please share these videos with people you think need to see them, because this week is all about having an open conversation about suicide and to change the way that we talk about suicide, because we've been quiet about it for so many years and it just has not helped. Seb Costello is a very well-known face and voice on TV and radio right around Australia. And he's also a very good mate of mine. We have been friends and colleagues for years. Suicide and darkness, dark thoughts, affects people of all ages. Some are more in danger than others, but for young people, it just seems to be particularly tragic. And that question of how do we speak to young people about suicide, and certainly how do we stop them from making a plan and from going down that route. And I wanted to talk to Seb Costello about it. Hello, Seb Costello.
G'day, Justin. I appreciate the invitation, and I think these sort of conversations we're becoming more comfortable with, and they're so important. So, strengthen your arm with what you're doing.
No, thanks, mate. They are difficult conversations. You're quite right, and I want to actually. It's a good place to start. Have we got better, blokes, you and I, particularly younger guys, a bit more in your area, but have we got better at ringing each other up or going around to see each other and say, mate, I'm struggling. I'm really doing it tough at the moment. And I don't know what's wrong with me to have that. Are we getting better at that?
I think in Melbourne or Australia in 2020, we're light years ahead of where we might have been 10 years ago, as far as I can remember. I just think the normalisation of the idea that we're not all bulletproof, the normalisation of the idea of putting your hand up for help, I think in my lifetime has changed considerably. I really do. I think, I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that asking for help, getting counselling was looked at as weak, but I do think it was just foreign territory for a lot of guys.
And I don't think we knew how to be guys and still have those conversations. I can recall, some friends calling me up, and you talk about nothing for 20 minutes before finally you get to that I'm struggling kind of thing from them or from me. I'm happy to admit, but it's that 20 minutes talking about footy, fishing, something like that, to just get, and many times that I'd have observed is the conversation would end before you managed to get around to that part of it. So I really hope that we have gone a hell of a lot further down the track than what we
I think you're right. I think we maybe previously saw that other conversation as being the ministering or the helping or the counselling. We saw the conversation for 20 minutes about something else rather than the issue that our friend was struggling with as our role, and our role was to sort of distract them from what was making them low. Whereas now I think we're better at actually seeking the topic, the feelings, the information that is actually causing our friends to struggle. And I think there is a better understanding now, and I firmly believe that you don't really get over it until you're able to articulate it, and there is so much to gain in sharing the load.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we reach out to counselling too, with the mates, but we reach out to that counselling as well. I mean, I can remember times in my life where I sort of white-knuckled it for far too long. And by the time you get into the counsellor's chair and you're talking to them, you've almost like you've got to pull out your list and say, look, I've got to get through it. And then you walk out going, why did I do that? Why did I wait for so long before I had that conversation? It's crazy.
Totally. Yeah. The first time I sought help and spoke to somebody, because I was in a pretty dark place, came after a fairly traumatic professional period. And when I say traumatic, I'm a journalist. Some people might not know that. And at the time, it was sort of the middle of 2017, and I was working in England as a foreign correspondent for Channel 9. And we just had this incredible, it was summer in England, but incredible few weeks of shocking tragedy and violence and lives lost. And within sort of a matter of weeks, I'd stood outside Manchester Arena, where, a man had blown up a pop concert. No sooner had I got back to London that two Australians and some others, were murdered on London Bridge. And then 10 days after that, I stood at the foot of a public housing block called Grenfell Tower and watched as a fire engulfed it. And I remember thinking, as I stood at the foot of it, there was no police exclusion zone. And as somebody who didn't live in London, I thought to myself, well, this must be an empty building because nobody's rushing around saying, back, back, back. We've got to... Anyway, it turned out it wasn't an empty building. There were, 72 lives that went up in that fire. And, anyway, then there was another attack in Spain. And through all of this, I'd sort of pushed on. I hadn't taken the time to think about the impact of seeing, death so regularly in different places. And I think part of me was scared to admit that I was struggling with that because I thought covering tragedy is a part of a journalist's job. And if I admit to myself and maybe my bosses that I was struggling with processing what had gone on, that maybe I wouldn't be able to do my job anymore, or that people would think I wasn't up to doing my job. And so I put it off. In the end, I left it too late. And then, I finally said, I want to try to speak to somebody, and got some great support from Channel 9 and from Darren Wick, who's the news director at Channel 9.
Yeah.
And I did it, and it was such a relief to go there. And I think, well, I may have been just so scared that saying this affects me was going to be the end of my career. I think it's actually the effect is the total opposite. Being able to process, work through those feelings and that sort of tough time, and work through it with somebody who was a professional. Allowed me to heal from it.
Yeah, because you're not in your right mind. You're not at a good place to be able to make that judgment. And as you said, you're looking at these other things. You're distracted by, well, what's my career? What are my mates going to think? What's my family going to think? Maybe but you're distracted by that, and you're not thinking, well, shit, how am I going to get from this point and get out to the other side?
Yep.
It's a shocking feeling.
And I think 100%. And so, so first of all, I think the things I've taken out in terms of wanting to kind of maybe reach people who are thinking, or people who have never decided to seek professional help, put their hand up, speak to somebody, is first of all, don't have the expectation that you're going to go in there, sit down on the couch, and an hour later you're going to be fixed. Yeah. It's a process that takes effort from you as much as it does, the professional. But also, it's something I think that if you're not going to be totally honest, don't worry about it. You've also got to be prepared to sit in there and lay out as much as possible. But I guess
was that difficult? Can I break into that bit? Was that tough for you? As a person who, and I'm a bit like this as well, is we're performers in a lot of way, aren't we, Seb? Radio people and TV people and whatever. We are performing. Did you have to kick that out of yourself and say, I'm not trying to insult you when I say this, but don't perform for the psychologist. Don't perform for the person who's giving you help. But
that's right. You've got to, yes, you're not there for them. You're not there to answer their questions. You're actually there for you. Yeah. And if you're not prepared to show who you are in that professional, trustworthy, secret environment, then you're not going to get much out of it. And I think what I kind of want to say at the end of this is, obviously in my case, getting to that stage came about as a result of going through, as a witness to traumatic events. Yeah. But doing it shouldn't be thought of as something that's sad. It will be tough, but the reward of the process of being able to come out the other side as a person who's grown, as a person who understands themselves better, and as a person, you know, who knows, who wants to take what they've learned and help others as well. I think a lot of, I couldn't encourage people more to try it.
Yes, absolutely. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So, do you remember that kind of moment? You know, when you're talking about seeing the fatalities, where beforehand, you know, you've sort of walked in as this sort of go get 'em journalist, ready to go. You've got the camera crew, you're ready to go, guys. Let's do it. You know, I'm gonna do a good job with this. I'm gonna tell the story well, because I know how you think. You know, you and I have known each other for a long time. I know how you'd be thinking that. You'd think, how am I going to do a good job with this and tell people in Australia what this story is? Do you remember that crossed over into something far too personal for you? You know, that it's gone from the job into, you know, and it's got inside you.
Because
what's that moment like?
I mean, this probably goes into a bit of the core of what we do as reporters, which may not be something everybody can necessarily relate to. But actually, no, I take that back. What you are doing while pushing through a pea soup of, you know, pain and feelings of struggling is you're suppressing how it's really making you feel. You know, you're holding back the idea that this is getting to you.
Yeah.
And so the moment when it sort of pours out is the dam buster. It's you sort of lost control in a way at this stage, because you've suppressed it so long that now it's really boiled over. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it felt. And so for me, you know, I obviously, you know, like I said, put my hand up, you know, slowed down on the professional level, and you know, and did what needed to be done. And it also, I guess, you know, again, I want to make sure people who are watching this and considering having you know, putting your hand up, you know, it's a good thing. Don't think of it as a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's not something I'm embarrassed about in the slightest.
No.
But it's also, again, not an overnight fix. You know, it takes time.
But I think the beauty with you, Seb, in talking about this is you understand the embarrassment, though. Not so much embarrassment, but you beforehand thinking, oh, gee, don't say anything. You know, did they notice? Did they notice that I'm sort of struggling? I've been through that period of, oh, gee, have they noticed that I'm struggling here? And I think that, you know, there's a couple of things for me. While years ago working as a radio producer with Neil Mitchell, I saw the program's emails, and through one of the emails came some child exploitation material that a listener had forwarded on to me. I don't know,
the purposes of highlighting it and exposing.
For the purposes of showing that, oh, look at what's around. Before I could realise what was on the screen, it was already in my brain. Took me months to get over it. Months and months and months to get over it, because our children were quite young at the time, and sadly I can see those things right now. It just burnt me. At that moment, and I was sitting there quite happily sipping on my coffee, laughing with the other producers, you know, maybe yelling at people on the phone, you know, being in a happy place. But all of a sudden, it hit me, and it took me so long to get over it, and I had to end up getting some help over that as well. So, hit the bottle very hard, drank very hard, and then we had Black Saturday, which you and I worked together. And there were some things there, some stories there that we had come across, and things that people had told us. And when I finished that, I hit the bottle incredibly hard until I had to pull myself up, and haven't had a drink since. But that was that was a big turning point for me. But you realise that you can't. There's only so long you can go along being professional.
Totally.
I guess police go through that, ambulance go through that. Nurses are going through that. You're only professional for so long, and then you just get broken down a little bit, I think.
Yep. But what you've been able to do by making those changes has been incredible. You know, as somebody who knows you, somebody who cares about you, you know, to be able to, you know, give that up and keep living a life in the way that it made the best version of you, you know, so tremendously proud, and that's, you know, really incredible. And you're right, you know, I remember when we were doing that fire, we were at a football ground, you know, up the Hume in one of the communities, and it had become a staging post. And I don't know if you remember this, but a school teacher approached us with pictures that her students had drawn of, and it was, you know, crayon drawings of primary school age kids drawing people on fire. You know, this was in the days after the blaze, you know, and yeah. So you just think, you know, that was something that stuck with me too. And you know, you kind of, yeah, I looking back on that in the context of what we've just discussed in Europe, you know, I think people have got to. I wasn't aware and didn't want to acknowledge when something affected me in the past, and now I wish I had been more in tune with that, and I wish I had been more comfortable admitting that something had affected me. And you know, if somebody watching this has something, and there'll be someone watching this who's got something they're thinking of right now, that you know, that is a struggle for them. And if that person hasn't, you know, worked through that properly, I just encourage them to do so.
And I guess the other mistake that can be made is they might look at you right now and they say, "Yeah, but I didn't see any dead bodies. I wasn't around any death or anything like that. So all that happened to me is this, you know, whatever that might be." And I mean, I guess the thing for me is, how do we stop not just younger men, but younger women from killing themselves? You know, how do we change that number? Because the numbers are horrendous. We haven't been talking about it enough. How do we stop people from taking their own lives?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, I just think we're made to be social animals, and we're made to interact and kind of help each other. So I think social connection is so important. And I look at what's going on now with the lockdowns in Melbourne as a result of coronavirus. Yeah. And something that's crucial for me, and I hope people are doing it, are conversations like this on Zoom. We're all locked in our houses, but do not forget the friends that care about you, the relatives that love you, the relatives you love. You know, just keep those relationships going.
And I guess the other thing too is trying to recognise that in somebody else, is to be able to see that they're struggling and see that they might need a little extra attention, to make that call. You know, don't just say, "Oh, look, I'll wait until he or she reaches back to me. I've sort of noticed something here." Maybe to make that call a little bit quicker for all of us.
Yeah, totally. Oh, there's that great episode of Friends, the sitcom, where they have that bet about whether there's ever a truly selfless act. Phoebe says there is, and I think Joey says there isn't. And, you know, in the end, maybe they decide, no, there isn't, because caring for somebody else does actually make you feel good. And so I guess I bring that up just because there's so much benefit in both for your own mental health and, of course, the mental health of someone you care about, in reaching out to them and trying to show them a little love.
Mate, it's so good talking to you. Thanks very much for the chat. I'm very proud of you as a friend, but I'm even more proud of you now for being so open. Thank you, mate.
I appreciate that, mate. No, thank you.